All right. I am going to bring on my sister to come in and talk with this about these vegan pros and cons, guys, because I think you guys need to hear it from somebody who has degrees. So veganism is good for taking a break, and yes, okay, perfect. So veganism is good for taking a break from, I think, everything. If you looking for just like a fast, you know what I mean? It's really good for fasting, okay? Because when you do fast, it allows your body to go into a state to where you're no longer, so the body, it does not digest food and heal at the same time. It does either or, right? So there are different times, right? And some people may know this, your body has a circadian rhythm, right? This circadian rhythm, and it can vary for every person because circadian rhythms can change based on stress, foods, environment, things like that. However, baseline, you have three different parts. You have the elimination phase, you have the intake phase, which is when you're eating food, and then you have the rest and repair phase, right? So when you're resting and repairing, you're not eating food. These are all different times that your body sets aside in order to operate and do certain things, right? So that being said, when you are going plant based or vegan, it does help you to do a slight just reset. You know what I mean? In different parts of Africa, they utilize a plant based diet in order to help bring the body back to health and to heal it. They do not recommend staying that way for a long period of time. However, it is utilized as a healing technique, right? So that is one reason, it is a pro. It is good for you in that way. Um, Another reason it's good for you, Karen. If you're still on, you're gonna have to like come back in. I don't know why like the connection is just not coming in for you. Another thing about veganism, I think it's just the overall knowledge of being more aware in general. You know what I mean? When I was vegan, I can't say that it was just like this crazy difference. I wasn't sick. I wasn't going through anything in general. So I really didn't have that issue. Um, what I will say, watch out for though, when you are vegan is you do want, first off, let me just make this disclaimer. No matter what you're eating, you want to be sure that you are utilizing that self-care tool. It's free, link in the bio, in order to, hey mommy,
Hey, what's good? Are we live? I feel like it was like a couple like it was like jet lag or something.
it probably
Like it was
is. It probably is.
okay.
We are
Okay.
live though to answer your question.
Okay, cool, cool,
Yeah.
cool, cool. I'm just tuning in. Just let me know
Yes, ma'am.
when to time in. I'm listening.
Yes, ma'am. So we were just talking about some of the pros of being vegan, right? So,
Hmm.
I just said the overall awareness of what you're consuming and the quality of that consumption tends to help us all. You know what I mean? Just be more aware because a lot of people are not thinking. They're eating anything from the store and they're not considering what's going in it, the chemicals, the processed foods, and they're just not considering that. And when they do choose to get more serious about their health, they tend to say, okay, I'm gonna let go of a lot of these things, and it does benefit. Um, Also, just fasting, you know what I mean? How indigenous cultures utilize fasting as a protocol to bring about health and restore health in the body. Again, y'all, it wasn't long term. They did it as a protocol short term, but it did bring about a benefit, right? Did you have any pros that you experienced while you were vegan that you want to talk about?
Oh yeah. So hey everybody, my name is Karen Boone. Um, I'm a healthy eating specialist. I'm a nutritionist. I have my degree in nutrition. So just as a disclaimer, for anybody, like I mean, we're all here trying to learn.
Yes.
I get that, but you got to understand, me and this beautiful lady here, we have both aspects of this whole health thing that we experience.
Mm-hmm.
We are not armchair anthropologists. An armchair anthropologist studies from reading somebody else's research and book, never leaving the office to get in the field to do the study and the actual research.
Exactly.
So we are that. So that's why I just want to let that be known.
Yes, ma'am.
So when I went vegan, which was about 10 years ago, 10 years and some change ago, um, I experienced a lot of detoxing. First off, I would say for the majority of a good maybe 6 months to maybe a year for me, I went through real deep detoxing, like as far as skin rashes. I dealt with like hardcore depression, all of those things. And that's another thing. When people talk about going vegan, they don't talk about the detoxing effects as far as like the uncomfortable shit, if you will. You know what I'm saying? Like it's always, oh, you know, we're happy, spiritual. It's so easy and stuff like that. And you just have the cravings. But no, people don't talk about the depression and the emotional shit that you go through during those transitions. People do not talk about that.
Right.
Okay. So we need to get back into the habit of being honest and transparent with people.
Yes.
We need to stop being so focused on trying to sell pipe dreams, because this shit is not 100% accurate how it's being portrayed in the media and on social media for pictures and for likes. That's not what it's about.
Right.
Okay. So when I went through those initial stages, I experienced a lot of energy. I felt light, you know, as far as my energy feels, as far as my emotional being, as far as my physical being. And I just had overall a lot of energy. Okay. But the thing about it is, that was coupled with me being in this dogmatic paradigm, as if, oh, I'm being vegan and I'm, you know, doing what is right spiritually. So like I'm higher, I'm superior. So me, and I can say this is true, I experienced being one of those people who were super dogmatic, who was super egotistical, and thinking just because I was vegan that I was better than other people who were not vegan, that I had more, what's the word? I had more allowances, if you will, to be able to be in particular spiritual spaces because I was vegan. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And it was just, let's just say the universe really showed me where I need to be knocking down a few notches in that department, okay? And so, in addition to that, and it wasn't just all negative, in addition to that, I met a lot of people, a lot of good people, did a lot of good networking, learned a lot about nutrition and health, because mind you, I was in school that pretty much the entire time. For the most majority of the time I was vegan, I was in school working on my degree. So in conjunction with me actually living that lifestyle with what I was studying, it was wonderful. It was wonderful. I don't regret going through that. However, once again, like, you know, the beautiful sister here is always talking about, there are so many negatives. And honestly, in my opinion, as far as doing it this long amount of time, because this is the thing, a lot of people who be on these, you know, on these social media platforms and on YouTube and giving their advice, it's good. It's good because we're all learning and we're all at different stages. But the advice that you get from someone who's been vegan for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years or more is going to be more, it's going to have more substance to it and more weight than someone who's been vegan for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. I'm sorry. That's just what it is. That's just what it is.
Right.
And so.
And then a woman versus a man too. That makes a huge difference as well.
Exactly. Exactly. And then you got to think about demographic locations, you know, where you're located at. So it's so many different factors that goes into play here. Luckily, I'm in the South. I'm in Arkansas. So, you know, throughout the year, you know, throughout the whole entire year, it wasn't really hard for me to be vegan per se. But I mean, that's not to attest for someone who's in Maine or someone who's in New York, you know what I'm saying, trying to go vegan all year round. It's going to be more difficult for them because they're up north, right? So it's so many different things. I also want to mention when I was vegan too, I was raw. I was a raw foodist for a whole year. And that was a whole, we'll have to get into that a whole nother time. But I experienced all the extremities of veganism to the core. Like I was not the type of person where I like was eating eggs, eating fish on the side. Like, no, not at all. I was super, all this passion, this energy you feel, that's how I was with everything I did. I did not play no games. I questioned everything I had, ate, restaurants, all that stuff. I did not go. So like, my experience is going to be different from somebody who still, you know, was still dabbling in eggs and stuff like that, which, as we've come to know, that was actually good to do.
Right.
But it's going to be different. So, yeah, I experienced a lot of good things, energy, meeting new people, all those things. But to me, the cons definitely outweigh the pros
Yeah.
on all levels. But I don't get all into that. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I thank you for that. So we had, I don't know why or how, but muscle loss was something I've experienced on a vegan diet, especially my upper tract muscles really shrunk in size. Yeah, so now we're gonna get into the cons, right? So, again, let me be very clear about this because, you know, I have a range of different people who eat different things on this, you know, watching and who is going to join and then watch later, right? And the reality is we all have different bodies, right? We have to keep that in mind. And please keep in mind, you're talking to two women. This is something we don't really consider when we're talking about proper fats that women need, when we're talking about hormone production that women have to go through in order to produce life, right? We are not men with a uterus, right? We are totally different biologically. And so because I think a lot of people don't really get that, they think that they can just, oh, well, I'm a man and this works for me. And it's like, does it really though? And then if it is, it's not working for us as women, right? And I guess some women it is, that's fine, you know, that's fine. However, for me, it wasn't. And like you experienced, brother, I experienced extreme muscle loss as well. I come from a thick family. I have always been more athletic build, a thicker woman, right? Full, everything. When I went vegan, I lost it all. It was like somebody just came and took it all. And you, at first, you're like, okay, I'm detoxing. That's fine. You know, you're like, I'm detoxing. I'm getting rid of all that, right? And you're okay with it because you're like, I'm doing this for spiritual reasons too. I'm not just doing this for the food, right? Like I'm purposing to really vibrate on the highest level, and I want to experience my third eye opening, my chakras, like, you know, you're really going there with it. Nothing wrong with it, right? However, I never was able to get my weight back. I was never able to. I'm gonna be real 100, y'all. I felt like I was devolving into a young man, a young boy. My hormones were going crazy. You know, I didn't feel like a woman anymore. I was feeling like a little boy. It's just what it was. You know, I got more androgynous. You know, I wasn't in my femininity. I wasn't, you know, my boobs left me. You know, my edges started to go. My hair was thinning. I've never had thin hair. Okay, I've always had thick hair. My hair was thinning. My face was breaking out. Y'all saw the pictures on my story. Like I was really going through it. Not only that, my mentality, right? You guys, I used to feel like little pops in my head, like something was sucking out in my brain. And I remember thinking that is not good. Like I just instinctively knew that is not good. Okay, I used to feel so paranoid, like just like paranoid as in like having thoughts about people just dying all the time, you know, and I didn't understand why. I did not understand why. I literally would get up from bed, my head was so heavy. I got a big head. However, I've always had a thick neck to go with it, right? My neck got super small when I was vegan. I would wake up in the morning and have to like really pick my head up in order to get up. And then I would just sit on the bed for like 4 hours just meditating, but really I just didn't have any energy. I was really like trying to prioritize what I was going to do that day because I didn't have any energy, you know. So my experience long term being vegan was not a good one, and unfortunately I didn't have a self-care tool at that time. I created it 3 years into being vegan because I was like, because I was training clients and I was like, I need a way to gauge my clientele and see what they're doing. And I started to use it as well. I didn't have the best experience going vegan. All right. So the cons really outweighed all of the pros for me, you know, and so I'm going to go ahead and throw that over to you, mommy.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree. And I see somebody in the comments, there's scientific research that claims it's because our ancestors ate animal flesh that our brains grew to the size that it is. Okay, yeah. So are you saying that, are you implying that we were vegan before, or are you saying that our ancestors ate animal flesh entirely?
Yeah. They're saying they ate animal flesh, and that was the reason why we even have the brains that we have to be on this level that we're on. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And like she mentioned, I was a thick woman. My family thick people. I lost a significant amount of weight because I'll say this as a disclaimer. Like before I was overweight, right out of high school, before I started college, I was overweight. I was super overweight. So I lost the weight like a lot of people do. That's another thing too. A lot of people go into veganism with body dysmorphia issues. Okay.
Speak it.
Going into veganism because they have bulimia, anorexic, all these other body psychological diseases, mental health issues, and they go into veganism and they use that as a catalyst to continue to do what they were doing before that they should have dropped. So that's another thing, okay? And I dealt with that, the body dysmorphia. And so I lost the weight and I was like, oh yeah, like, you know, this is good. I'm losing weight, yada, yada. But as the years went on, because mind you, I was vegan for 10 years, a little bit over 10 years. And so I never, once I lost the initial weight, I was about 180-ish, 182, 183. I went all the way down to like 145 and I gained some weight back and I ended up getting back up to 150, between 150, 160. However, in the midst of me being vegan for so long, I still was wanting to gain muscle and to still strengthen myself. And I was not able to do that. I was at a plateau. It didn't matter. And it didn't even matter what type of variations of veganism that I was going on, as far as like, you know, letting go of the grains, being gluten-free, you know, going high carb, going low fats, all the different variations of the vegan diet I did explore. Okay. And none of that helped. I was never able to gain the muscle that I was gaining. And to also note, I was weight training. It wasn't like I was just out here doing extreme cardio.
Yeah.
I was weight training my ass off and I was never able to gain any muscle. In addition to that, my recovery time was terrible. Terribly work out and be sore for like 3 or 4 days from that one initial workout. Sore. My recovery time, it was like, what? I didn't know. Like, I'm like, what's wrong with me? I'm eating all of these plant-based foods, and that's another thing too. I'm not eating a bunch of processed foods. Now, I did temper in some processed food, vegan processed foods, but I'm doing green juices on a daily, smoothies, alkaline grains, alkaline this, fruits, water, all these things, okay? And I'm like, yo, my recovery time, like, I'm so sore. Like, I'm literally having to take 2 or 3 days, 4 days off after I do one initial workout. Like, what is wrong? What is wrong?
Oh my God, me too.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Girl, you're speaking on that body dysmorphia. That's so real. Like, I remember, so your brain does this thing where it's called body dysmorphia. However, it does this trick on you where you think that you still look how you did, full, big, and good, but you really don't. And you can't see it.
Yep.
You cannot see it. You won't see it until it gets down to the very last drop. And you like, wait a minute. You know what I mean? But I thought I looked good. I thought I was still kind of healthy. Girl, I'm looking back on my photos now and I'm like, why ain't nobody stop me? You know? It's real. Yeah. So, you know, it's so Warrior and Garden said, just got back from being off grid. Let's just say that vegan life doesn't cut it out there. Whew, it doesn't. It doesn't. And that's one thing we were talking about with the foraging life. Like, when you go foraging and you got to really see what nature provides, not what man has hybridized and grafted and put together and let you eat from the store. But you don't, there isn't a patch of greens. There isn't a patch of cotton cabbage. There isn't a patch of kale. It's not that. You know what I mean? So you really have to depend on what nature provides for you. And guess what? Guess what you're not going to be doing when you're foraging? You're not going to be doing much work because it's only so much you can get from the plants. You know what I mean? Veganism really is and this is nothing against those who choose that for themselves. This is nothing against that. It's the reality. With the whole COVID thing and the shutdown thing, guys, if y'all had to go outside and survive, you would be eating meat fairly quickly, and that's just what it is. What you forage? What do you say?
And then too, if anybody out there does any type of foraging, you know, even when it comes to foraging significant amounts of a variety of plant-based stuff is hard, because you got to think, you know, like say for example, I'm in a particular area, I may find some mullein, right, and it may be in abundance, but you got to think, you're not going to sit up and just eat mullein raw, because there's small little hairs that can cause issues as it goes down. It's better to cook it or to super, you know, dry it out, but eating it fresh is difficult.
Right.
So even though it's a green, even though it's a wild edible herb, you're still not going to sit here and cut that up and eat that in a huge salad. Right. It's just, I mean, your body, I mean, yeah. And so that's just one level. Another level is just like how she mentioned earlier, a lot of foods that we eat are hybridized, okay? And so when it comes to foraging, as you will soon find out, a lot of the things that you eat, let alone find in the store, it doesn't matter if they're organic, you are not going to find in the wild in most cases, and it depends on your demographical locations. But if you go out in the wild, you're not going to find bushes of romaine lettuce. It's not. I mean, and once again, disclaimer, I'm still learning, so you know, please correct me. I stand corrected. I don't have a problem with that. Yeah. But you are not going to find a row of romaine lettuce, okay? You're not going to find bushes of, well, not bushes, but you're not going to find bundles of kale out in the wild.
Right.
Okay? You're not going to. There are very limited greens that we eat in the stores that you can find in the wild, which are mustard greens, some turnips, and that's some. I hardly ever see turnips. And then you have certain indigenous varieties of spinach, but it's not even on the same level, the same variety of spinach that we eat in the store now. It's called lamb's quarter, which that is kind of hard to find.
Very.
So when you get into that, you're like, yo, if I'm out in the wild and I was supposed to be vegan, how would I find the proper substitutes to eat all those plant-based things, when the same things that I eat from the store, I can't even find in the wild if I was forced to go out to the wild and be dependent on the wild in order to get my food sources?
Exactly. And it was that realization that made me say, wait a minute. Because it really was writing this book, you guys. It was really writing this book that it really made me, you know, question a lot of my own dogmas and doctrines. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm talking about eating natural. I'm talking about eating wild. First off, let me just preface, I grew up growing my own food. I grew up fishing. I grew up hunting. I grew up doing those things. All right. I didn't grow up just like eating out the store. I didn't grow up like that. My people taught us how to be self-sufficient. Okay. So, you know, I didn't forage. However, I did know certain things. So it's like, when I was doing this book, I'm like, wait a minute. If we're talking about eating naturally, and I'm sitting here, I understand, which is why I did enjoy Dr. Sebi, because Dr. Sebi spoke about the things that were hybridized and how these foods are not what we think they are. Like you said, mustard, right? Collard greens come from mustards, cabbage come from mustards, Brussels sprouts come from mustards. Like, they're literally taking one food and turning it into a bunch of other things. I'm not saying whether that's good or bad. I'm just telling you what they're doing, right? So the thing is that when I was writing that book, I was like, wait a minute. If I really had to go out, and I foraged before, if I really had to go out and forage, what are you finding? Wild berries sometimes, little rat, you know, you're finding little things, but they're in groups and little pockets. These are not things that are going to sustain you, is what I'm saying. You're not building civilizations with plant foods, is what I'm saying. Right? And majority of us haven't really done research to the point where we know. I took an anthropology class in college. And one thing we learned in anthropology class is that you can clearly tell the difference between modern man and ancient man. And it has to do with the cavities. Why? Because in the advent or the bringing in of agriculture came cavities, y'all. You see what I'm saying? And also, too, we got to consider that people ate based on classes, right? People didn't eat just because, oh, I'm just going to go to the store. No, we do that now. Back then it was like, and even still when you go to certain countries, they do this. If you're eating a certain way, it tells your class. If you eat your plants, it tells your class, which is considered lower class. If you were eating good meats and good cuts of meat, you were considered to be wealthy, right? It's just like the reason why Africans gave a dowry of cows and goats is because it showed wealth. They didn't give fruits and vegetables, y'all. So, you know, it's like certain things we don't really understand. We like to pretend like we do, like we know about Africa so much, but majority of people haven't been, and they don't have any connection to anybody there to really ask these questions. I've done it. I've asked the question, guys. And one thing I do have, I'll bring Tiffany on. You and I are speaking about it, Karen. Tiffany, she is a sister. She was the first Black midwife certified licensed in Detroit. And guys, she studied with indigenous women cultures about women health. She's a midwife, okay? One thing she said is that the indigenous women, these elders, okay, these elders who have been passing this down for generations, they do not recommend raw foods. Why? Because they said that raw foods is very hard on the system. Guess who learned that the hard way? Guess who don't have 4 to 5 stomachs to digest and then throw up and then chew it again and then chew it and then swallow it again? Humans. We can't digest cellulose, guys, right? Like we like to think we do because we got grinders, but we can't digest cellulose, all right? Plants are for fiber to move that stuff through. They have their balance, of course, but it is not meant to be the overall meal for us, right? Again, nothing against people who are eating it. We're specifically talking about our experiences and what we realized and learned in our studies. And in indigenous cultures, they do not do that, all right? They do not do that. They ferment their food, they cook their food, because you can't. This is why our ancestors cooked the hell out of these greens, because you cannot just go and eat raw collard greens. As much as we like to think we can, you cannot, right? You just can't do it. You're not going to get the nutrition that you need from it. And not only that, we have to be considerate that how do you measure absorption? This is the thing. People will look at broccoli. There's always that meme, right? Well, in a steak, you get this much protein, and in broccoli, you get this much protein, right? But people don't consider absorption. The reason why we have a middleman is because we can't digest cellulose. The cows can, the goats can, the animals can. So they chew it, they digest it, and then we absorb it through their meat. That's just life. Life concerns life. What we can't do is sit there and chew all day like we try to, right? for 5 to 10 years to get nutrition. So how do you measure absorption in the body to tell whether you're actually absorbing the foods that you say you're getting all your protein from? Right?
I agree.
How do you do that? So you do that through the self-care tool. You have to really look at yourself and document, and it takes months to years. It is not something you can do. Oh, I did it for a month, 2 months, 1 year. No, that's not how that works, because it takes time. Your body is still getting off of its own reserves that when you were eating meat, when you were sucking from your mother's breast, because that's animal protein, right? Like your body is still pulling from that, right? And one brother said he totally agrees. All I had was yucca leaves and bark. Everything else was wild herbs. See? And he was off grid, you guys. And this is what I'm saying. We're so detached from what real nature is. We're so detached.
Facts.
We think stepping outside and putting our feet on the ground and getting sunlight and eating fruit. Oh, no, I'm so natural. No, you're not. No, you're not. Half the people are not growing their food. They're not cooking. They're not doing anything that would create self-sufficiency, because when you are, you will know from a fact. You cannot survive like that, right? And if you are alive, it's because you are on your last. You are truly surviving on some and then you're going to have psychological issues because you're not getting proper fats. Plants don't produce fats. You know what I mean? So it's like, when we talk about these kinds, and I'm talking about this on my page, I'm not purposing to be like, oh no, veganism. I'm doing it because it's people who are literally on their last. They really have an issue. I was having heart palpitations, you guys. It felt like somebody was in my chest, just while I'm sleeping, laying down. I wake up hearing this, and I already had a heart arrhythmia. A heart murmur. I already had a little skip. So, I don't need extra. You know what I mean? So it was just like, to go from experiencing health and then to go oh man, I don't know what's going on. I don't know why I'm so tired. I don't know why I just want to sit down and sleep all day. I don't know why, I just can't think straight. I just can't stay focused. And I'm a martial artist, so I practice focus, and that was the reason why I was able to do it a little bit longer, because I practiced focusing. However, it was so hard. And I'm like, why is it so hard to focus? You know what I mean? So it's like, people really got to understand that you can do what you're doing. However, you really need to be documenting yourself. Because if you're not, you're going to do what we did.
Yeah.